Doug. Kira. All right. Well, then I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's March 16th, 9 o'clock, meeting of the Environmental Management Commission on Zoom. And we have Commissioner John Olson in Hilo, Elise Robinson, Lee McIntosh, Dee Fulton, and myself. So we have a quorum, and we can proceed with the meeting. So the first thing is to call the meeting to order, which I've just done. And for to put everyone on notice, we are recording this meeting. You probably had to click a box to confirm that. And the next step would be to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting. And in order to proceed, I will need a motion to that effect.
So moved.
John, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dee. I have some suggested changes to the minutes. On page 2, section 5, unfinished business, I'm quoted. And in the, looks like the third paragraph, says the other thing that I was interested in is being able to move the Kealakekee wastewater treatment plant to the ag park. I don't think I said that. What I intended to say was that I wanted to move the water, the recycled water from the Kealakekee wastewater treatment plant to the ag park at the bottom of Kaiminani Drive. So that will need to be fixed. The next sentence says there is a leased ag park. I would drop the word leased. It is a state ag park. And then in the next sentence, it says there are about 400 acres of land, and I believe I said there are about 400 acres of DHHL land, that's Department of Hawaiian Homelands land, which are also zoned agriculture. So I would like to see those changes made to the minutes. And I would also like to apologize to commissioners because on page 7, there's a discussion between myself and Director Mansauer. And in that discussion, at the end of the discussion, our chair, Georgine Adams, asked the vice chair, me, to put this discussion on the agenda for the next meeting to get answers to specific questions and some background from DEM. I failed to add this to the agenda for today's meeting. So it's something we'll have to take up during Director Mansauer's time today, or move on to a coming meeting. Bottom line was there were a number of questions with regard to the use of R1 water in the ag park, and questions about whether the Department of Parks and Recreation planned to pay for that R1 water and so on. So any other changes to the minutes? If not, let's go to a vote. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Sorry, Chair.
John, I can't see your hand. Okay, good. So we have unanimous approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
Mr. Chair, this is Kira Wong. The motion actually needs to be motion to amend the minutes as discussed. So if Mr. Olson can just withdraw his motion and then just start over of the motion to approve the minutes as amended. Thank you.
Thank you.
I withdraw my motion.
And Dee, you're muted. We need you to confirm.
Confirm, yes.
That you second the amended
Sure,
motion.
I withdraw that then.
Motion to approve as amended.
John made an amended motion to approve the minutes. We need your second to that.
Oh, well, yes, I second the motion to approve the amended minutes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, all those in favor,
Aye.
raise your hand, say aye. Okay, we have unanimous approval of the minutes. And moving forward, statement of the chair. I'll make statements over the course of the meeting, so I'll reserve the right as we move forward. As you all know, I'm only sitting in because Georgine is traveling, and I'm more than happy to pass the gavel back to her when she returns.
You're trainable.
So the next item on the agenda is item number 4, public statements on items on the agenda. Mr. Secretary, Peter Sir, do we have anyone other than Doug Perrine who has requested permission to speak to council on items on the agenda today?
Chair, no other requests for testimony.
Well, that being the case, Chair would recognize Doug Perrine, who's speaking to item 6A on today's agenda under new business. The subject is the disposal of the many different kinds of batteries that are currently being disposed of on the Big Island. Doug, you have the floor.
Hello, and thank you for what you do, everybody. And here's my show and tell. Let's see if you can see that here. This is my 8.5 pound box of household batteries built up since the last time the county had a household hazardous waste disposal event, or collection event, I should say, in Kona, where they accepted batteries. They have quietly stopped accepting batteries. If you go to the HawaiiZeroWaste.org website, you'll find suggestions for places where you can drop car batteries, lead acid batteries only, for recycling at these private businesses. Other than that, it seems as though the topic is completely avoided. So in this box here that I just lifted up, there are several pounds of very valuable heavy metals, including lithium, manganese, nickel, and lead. These are things that we as a country desperately need for our energy future, and which we are currently sourcing largely from dodgy places. For example, we're mostly dependent upon China for our lithium supply. Lithium is, of course, vital to our energy future. So we're positioning ourselves for the future to be in a situation with China that would be equivalent to, say, if we were like Europe and completely dependent on Russia for our energy right now. It's a matter of national security and just common sense that we need to make use of these valuable heavy metals that we have. The flip side of the coin is that all of these are toxic. And since the county provides no mechanism, and nor has any private industry stepped up to provide any mechanism to dispose of these in a responsible way, obviously nobody is. I mean, I don't know anybody else that has a box under their sink, just waiting for somebody to give us a proper way to deal with these. They're going into the landfill or by the side of the road or wherever. And I think we all recognize as reasonable human beings that there's no way the lining under our landfill is going to last forever. Eventually, sooner or later, everything that's in there is going to leach down into the aquifers and into the lava tubes that go into the ocean and poison future generations and marine life, so forth. Now, this is the tip of the iceberg here. The big iceberg that's coming is electric vehicles, of course, and it's not coming in a few years or tomorrow. That problem arrived yesterday, so to speak. In this past November, I got rid of my 10-year-old electric vehicle, which had a huge lithium battery in it. And for which the county had no mechanism of disposal. Fortunately, I was able to sell that EV to somebody who shipped it to the mainland to be sold in the used vehicle monument. But I have a acquaintance with a almost identical vehicle who was in a different position when the service department, where he took his vehicle to be serviced, pronounced his battery dead and unrepairable. And his only choice then to dispose of that responsibly would be to remove the battery and ship it to the mainland and have a new battery shipped over here. And that's $10,000 for the battery and then $3,000 for the shipping. I presume the shipping to the mainland is similar. So like $3,000 shipping to get it to the mainland. It's not something that people are going to do. We know what people do with their used vehicles if it's going to cost them more than 10 or 20 bucks to have them towed to a place where the metal can be recycled. So this is this is a desperate crisis. The county needs to come up for a plan what to do with batteries. And these big lithium batteries are not just a hazard in terms of poisoning our soil and water. They're also a hazard in terms of starting fires. You look at all the dead vehicles along the road now. Imagine if each one of those could be an ignition point for a brush fire, and an ignition point that's very hard to put out. You have to keep water on a lithium battery fire continuously for days before it's going to extinguish permanently. So we really need a system to dispose of our batteries. And that's my spiel. I'll pass it back to you guys.
Thank you for your bringing this to our attention. Obviously, it's a very important subject, and we will add it to our agenda and also look to some input from Director Mansauer when he makes his presentation at the meeting today. So thanks very much for raising this issue. I know that that it has also been raised with Councilwoman Villegas. So we may be hearing more about this from the council side as well. Moving forward, I would like to recognize Commissioner Cardwell is now on board with us as well. Welcome today. And moving along with the agenda, we are at the unfinished business portion now. And the first part of that would be a status report from various commissioners on their priorities. Does any of the commissioners have anything to report on your priorities?
Well,
Yes.
I think I've stated this before. I mean, I think that we need to get to the point where we figure out how we are going to pay for whatever it is we're going to do. I mean, we got to pin the tail back on the donkey, because nothing is really going to move forward until the issue of how do we pay for it is resolved. The thing that I have floated is that we pay the disposal fee at the point of purchase. We collect the money out front. Now, I know that that's probably not going to be the most popular thing in the world, because basically right now, everybody is getting by with just having it come out of the existing property tax pool. The downside of that is that the average duck in the pond has no idea what it actually costs to do what we need to do, as we've just had the dissertation on batteries. That's just one of many things that we need to get to refine, put a point on. And I think the public in general will get on board when they understand the costs and the consequences of their purchasing. If we can make them aware of the costs and the consequences of not doing an adequate job, I think we're going to get support. Until then, I mean, we're whipping a dead horse.
Thanks, Commissioner Olson, for keeping us reminded of this subject. And I believe we'll hear more, hopefully, from the administration from Steve Bader with regard to this subject, which is in the legislature this session, or at least it was to a certain point. Commissioner Fulton.
Thank you, Chair Rick. I just want to report that I've been stymied as far as acquiring any further data that I requested over a year ago of the Department of Environmental Management. I've requested chloride data on the wells along Ali'i and the return to the Kealakekee wastewater treatment plant. And the last time we saw any of that data was for January of 2021, when it was presented at that, I think it was the February meeting. So since then, I had, actually prior to that, I had asked that that information be included in the director's report. Ramsey, Director Mansour declined to include it in the director's report, but instead directed me to Eric Takamura. So I contacted Eric Takamura, and then eventually I got sent to Dora Beck. Recently, I reached out to Dora Beck and said, here's the information I'd like to have. I'd like to have the chlorides. I'm also interested in any smoke testing that's been done to check for leaking laterals. Dora sent me some data. The most recent of that data dates to January 2021. So at this point in time, I have no new information despite repeated requests for this data. And I think we'll circle back to that during the director's report. So I have that to report, that I'm not getting any cooperation from DEM. And that raises the question of why. And so in my mind has anything been done? Certainly they've got chloride data. What about the smoke testing? Has that even been done? As again, we'll circle back to that during the director's report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner McIntosh, anything new?
No, I don't have anything new to report.
I did want to ask, we have been including under item 7, reports correspondence. Every month we have included your request for information on Waiahina Transfer Station. Do you want us to continue to include that every month, or you want to ask about it when you think there's new information to be had?
You don't have to include it every month. Just the director said he would inform us if anything new happens, and so far I've seen him tinkering down there, but I haven't seen him doing any real major work lately. So and maybe an update if anything's changed with the contract. Nothing else. Doesn't have to be included.
Okay, well, we'll disinclude that from item 7 in the future, but keep on it. Keep asking the hard questions. All right, Commissioner Cardwell.
I don't have anything new to report about composting, but I did get an email. I had requested that Peter send out an email to all of you about a bill that was up. I think it was HB 2399. So I just wanted to say that that did pass, but it's now going to the Senate, I believe. But that's exciting news, and I can send more information to Peter about that later. But I don't know anything about composting to report.
Okay, well, the subject may come up when Steve Bader gives us a report on current legislative activity as well. So thank you for that. Oh, yes, Elise, I'm sorry. I'm going randomly back and forth across the pictures on the top of my screen, so.
That's fine. I don't have anything to report on my priorities, but I would like to request that on that list. I know each commissioner was assigned what they were working on, and mine is the last item on that list. I think it's item 17 regarding finding ways to prepare the next generation for the jobs and responsibilities that DEM needs in their staff. That's not the word for word, but I think it was number 18, 17 or 18.
Well, that's a good one, and particularly in light of what Doug Perrine shared with us today. Clearly, jobs in recycling is an important thing to consider. So keep an eye on that ball. That's important. I do have something to report on one of my priorities. The sewering of Honokohau Harbor seems to be moving forward nicely. Senator Kanuha's office has managed to free up $2.2 million, I believe, for planning of that sewering, and that is underway. And once the plan is done, Senator Kanuha is pursuing an additional $6 million for the actual installation of the sewer at Honokohau. And he seems to be positively disposed that that will come out of this legislative session. So all things being equal, Honokohau will be sewered in the near future. And just as a reminder, part of that project is delivering the sewer water from Kealakekee Parkway to the wastewater treatment plant, which is approximately 0.7 of a mile south of the harbor. Because at this point in time, there does not appear that the county installation of that sewer line will be complete at that time. So the plans are for the state to install the sewer line so that we will immediately begin to deliver the sewage from Honokohau to the wastewater treatment plant. Excuse me. So that's all I have on my priorities. And we have one other item of unfinished business, and that is a status report on action items from the previous meeting. B1, update on DEM utilizing county text notification system to inform residents about unforeseen closures of all or portions of the transfer station in a timely manner. Anything new to report on that, Director? Looks like maybe Director Mansour is not there. So hopefully when we come to the section on his report, we can get an update on the closures at that time. So moving along to new business. We have on the agenda to begin the discussion on the disposal of all of the batteries per the input that we got from Doug Perrine. And I wonder if any of the commissioners have anything to say on the subject. I think John's point earlier was, John Olson's point was broad about all kinds of incoming things, but I wonder if you have specific concepts about the kinds of batteries that we're talking about here that we should be discussing. Yes, Commissioner Cardwell.
So I have a teeny bit of information. I know that Mr. Kays was doing a pilot program for disposing of batteries. I, like Mr. Prine, also have a box of batteries, and I did bring them to Mr. Kays. I don't know how that pilot program is going. I think it'd be worthwhile to follow up on that, and I can do that. And I'm not sure if they're taking lithium batteries. I know that they're taking the regular kind of battery. And I wanted to add to what he said. Another concern that comes to mind has to do with used lithium batteries that people use for solar systems, because that's going to become an issue as well. People are starting to switch to lithium batteries, for their solar systems, but they say that they last 10 to 20 years, but, it kind of remains to be seen whether or not that's going to happen. So as we move to more renewable energy and people have, off-grid people are using lithium batteries, when they no longer work, there's going to be a disposal issue there as well.
Yeah, excellent point. And as Doug Perrine pointed out, and you just stated that some of these things are already meeting their life cycle. There certainly are people who have had battery systems on their homes for more than 10 years. And another consideration with regard to batteries is also the larger companies that are installing battery backup systems on solar and wind power generators. Those batteries are brought in. Should be a concern about how they're disposed of in this county as well. So point of purchase, we know from the recycling of automobile batteries that point of purchase works. It also works for tires. So it seems irresponsible that more and more hybrid vehicles are being brought into the island without a disposal system for them. So it's AA, AAA, B or C and D batteries, and camera batteries, and batteries in computers, and batteries in cell phones. All of these things are being presumably ending up in the landfill, and that's something we all need to think about. Does anybody else have input on the subject that they want to put on the table? This is something that we need to continue to talk about in the future. Yes, Lee McIntosh.
I do know that there are certain, it's been a while since I've been to Gila or Kona, but I do know there are certain stores that will take items like the used cell phones and different things like the automotive stores, that a lot of them will take or exchange car batteries. So they do have programs out there, but usually it's what they specialize in. And I think the bigger problem we're finding is that because we're an island, not part of not on the mainland, so we don't have easy access to companies that will take these items, and it's costly to ship them. And I think that's more the major problem that the county and state is running into, rather than point of purchase. I mean, point of purchase could maybe help, but the bigger problem is there has to be someone to take this, and I don't think I don't know, the DEM would have to elaborate more, but it sounds like someone to take it isn't there right now. So.
Yeah, I see the director's back online now. I wonder if we can get him to weigh in on the subject of battery disposal.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry, Rick, I heard you, but I was on the phone for an urgent matter. But
no problem.
As far as the batteries concerned, we do have hazardous waste event twice a year. We just had one 2 weeks ago on the west side. So, and that takes batteries and hazardous waste. We spend quite a bit of money on these events, and we advertise them pretty well. So I encourage people to take advantage of these events. Each event costs us about $50,000. So definitely, it seemed like what I'm hearing, it could be really doing that public education, start concentrating on that. It seemed like there's disconnect somewhere between what people know and what we do deliver from services. Therefore, I think hopefully I added a PIO position this coming fiscal year, and tentatively it was approved. So hopefully as we move forward, we have a public education officer, information officer on board, that we could do more of outreach to the public and more of the education of what we do and not do. It seemed like we used to do that public education back in the old days. We need to get back and work with the communities and do more community events and do the education of what services we have. So I could foresee that become an improvement as we move forward. Hopefully comes July, we should be able to recruit for that position. As far as electronic batteries, we have under the and electronic e-waste, we collect these batteries as well. So you guys could put them in the container in the bin where the e-waste goes. So that's also another way to collect these batteries. The third way, like Lee mentioned, there's stores like Home Depot and Lowe's. They take your battery if you have like a tool, power tool, that you use that battery for it. All you have to do is take it back to Home Depot and Lowe's. They take these batteries and they dispose of it. But like I said, it seemed like there's disconnect. We need to do more of the education to get our community on board of what we do.
So I have a question about that may be involved with the disconnect. It seemed from what Doug Bryan said in his testimony that it is not clear on the county website that they will take all kinds of any kind of battery, lithium ion, ferrous, lithium ferrous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's camera batteries, there's cell phone batteries, there's computer batteries, there's a whole range of batteries. And it was his understanding that those would not be taken.
Yeah, if it's electrical type of battery, it goes into the recyclable bin of e-waste. So, and that's in the department through our vendor they handle. Also, we do it during the hazardous waste event. We do that twice a year. We just did one 2 weeks ago. People could bring all kind of hazardous waste, batteries, oil, whatever, and we take care of it during the events. But like I said, if the website is not clear, we could work on it and modify it just to make it clear to everybody.
And then specifically, what about these large lithium ion batteries that people are using for home solar storage, and also the large batteries that are in automobiles? Are those recycled?
Yeah, the large batteries, automobiles, you could go to, when you replace the battery, they take the old battery from you because you have to turn it in and they give you a new battery for vehicles. The other one is also through the hazardous waste event, you could bring these batteries and we dispose of them through that event. Like I said, maybe we need to be more clear as we do these events. Maybe we need to specify what we expect to take so people are aware of what they could bring in.
So specifically the batteries in a hybrid car, it's the responsibility of the dealer when they swap that out at the end of its life. It's the dealer's responsibility to recycle it?
That's the understanding, yes. It's just like any other car battery. When they replace it, they're supposed to take it from you.
And so otherwise it could be turned in at the hazardous waste event.
Right.
Okay, well, that's important information. I was frankly not aware of that. And clearly Doug Perrine was not either when he did his testimony. So let's continue to watch this subject, and I think maybe when the next hazardous waste pickup cleanup is announced, perhaps we can get some media attention to the fact that we're talking about all batteries are considered hazardous waste and will be collected at these events. Yes, Commissioner Fulton.
Something that's been niggling in my mind over this battery issue is what happens to the batteries that are within electric cars that are involved in collisions and end up at the body shops and they're totaled. So that's just another question as well. What happens with those batteries?
Yeah, the collision and the dismantling contractor will dismantle anything hazardous before they recycle the steel and the metal. And that also get considered hazardous waste that end up being handled by hazardous waste vendor.
Commissioner
Because
Cardwell.
they cannot pretty much smash the car, because usually they take all the hazardous, everything out of the car and they compact it pretty well for, transport off island. So definitely everything hazardous, they take them out of the vehicle before they smash it and pack it for transport.
Melissa, go ahead.
I thought I would just take a look at the County of Hawaii hazardous waste collection page just to kind of see what information is there. And it does, I mean, there is a long list of things that are accepted, things that aren't accepted, where the hazardous waste collection is. Like Mr. Mansour just said, there was one, I feel it looks like the most recent one was in Puna actually on March 6th, but there was one in Waimea on the 5th, and then there was one in Kailua on the 12th. So maybe the issue is just lack of, I don't know, lack of people looking at the website, or just the dissemination of information that people just don't know where to look for this kind of information. I'm not sure, but there's clearly a disconnect, because all the information is on that page of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And one of the things that is acceptable are all different kinds of batteries, including lithium.
Right.
So
yeah, thank you, Melissa. I think that's what I thought, because our guys do really a good job. But the only thing we cannot do is just, we do the advertisement, we do the programs, but there's the few that probably, you're right, maybe they don't know how to navigate to get to the information, or maybe they get to the information when they have the product at hand. But yeah, if, like you just did, you log to our site, it's very clear. So Rick, I hope also for you, that's why I thought it was disconnect, because I felt we did everything. Our staff's really been doing a good job in trying to be more transparent, more out there. And like I said, this event, it costs us a lot of money. So I hope people take advantage of it.
I guess my only question with this site, so right now there's only the past, like the events that have already happened. So when, because they happen twice a year. So how soon is it announced when the waste collection happens, so that people have enough time to schedule that, I guess? Is it like 3 months out, or what, do you know the time frame of that?
Yeah, usually because we have to go through the procurement process. So it takes about 3 months, and we advertise it in advance, because it takes that much time to secure a vendor. So yeah, people have plenty of time to get on the website, and just all they have to do is just read our website.
Hello.
Go ahead, John.
So what are we talking about in money in terms of what it's costing the county to do this?
It's $50,000 each event. That's why I'm, when I'm hearing comments like that, sometimes I kind of wonder, staff doing a great job, but it seemed like it come across like, the only thing I could think of it is must be disconnect. But I mean,
Right.
They do a good job trying to put it out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's getting back to my point, is that we've got to get it off basically the property tax base, and get it back to the consumer at the point of purchase. We got to get the money.
Definitely, that, you're right, John, and that's totally a different discussion of how we're gonna fund all these programs. And
Right.
that's continuing discussion. We're never gonna give up on that. I know it's probably gonna be some resistance on coming with certain program, as we discussed, pay as you throw, go after the producers through legislation. So that is always ongoing discussion with legislators, way in advance what we need to put out there to be able to control, some of these stuff that producer is not being responsible for, or if we're gonna take it on, it's gonna be at a cost. So, but yeah, this is, the good thing is also, we had offered, the chief position to a very qualified individual that will be joining us in probably June or July. So we're gonna be more concentrating on that as well, on putting a plan together to get us through that. But, we're gonna face resistance. People are used to get a free stuff.
Well, it isn't free.
Yeah,
It isn't free.
well, it comes to the land, well, we paying for it, but nobody pays for it at the point of disposal. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. Exactly my point.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
got
I know you get it.
Well, we're working on it, and hopefully with your help, guys, we'll navigate through these difficulties, because like I said, we may face some resistance, but we need to put a good plan together and present it and see what comes out of it.
Basic law of physics, motion creates friction.
All
That's
right,
correct.
well, I'm glad we're having this discussion, and the discussion will continue. There is a note in the chat to the effect that the county does not have a contract to schedule the next events, and therefore they can't announce the event dates until they have the contract to schedule the next event. So we'll continue to discuss this. I would like to, in recognition of Steve Bader's valuable time, I would like to move up on the agenda the discussion, the legislative update that we've been looking for a while. And I apologize, Steve. I should have thought of this earlier, but I'd like to give you the time to make your presentation now so that you can leave after you've done that. If there's no objections from the other commissioners. All right, thank you.
Feedback somewhere.
Maybe turn off your mic.
We'll get past the technical difficulties.
Yeah, it looks like I think we figured
Okay.
that out. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me. Want to acknowledge all of the commissioners volunteering your time to do this important work. The mayor has a real push for sustainability. I don't think the general public understands that where the connection is between sustainability and the work that's done by DEM and your work as citizens, to help assist in that process. So when I go to the legislature and have discussions with our delegation and other legislators, even they, I think, sometimes don't see that connection. And I think it's really important that the community understand that. And so hopefully in that budget process, that PIO position gets approved, and there could be more concerted and coordinated effort to get information out so people can understand what's being done, all the good work that's being done, but also how important that work is to the future. Rather than going sort of bill by bill, doing that type of analysis, I'm just going to kind of take some highlights and kind of give you kind of an overview. The staff has been doing a great job of tracking bills. Peter and everybody at the downline, you know, in different divisions. I get information daily, sometimes several times a day. I'm in regular contact with Ramsey and Peter, and it's been very helpful for the county's overall legislative, approach. Now there is, I think right now, and this will change by the end of the week, but I think there was about 1,000 bills that crossed over. And out of those 1,000 bills, at the department level, the county is probably tracking between 250 and 300 bills of interest or concern. There's many other bills that we keep an eye on, but some of those bills are not going to get hearings, and some of those bills will be amended, so they're going to look a little different. But the ones that are being tracked across county, I would estimate there's somewhere between 250 and 300 bills in that vicinity. Out of the mayor's office, we're looking closely at about 45 or 50 bills. We have been kind of looking at them from the very beginning. And out of those bills, about a quarter of those bills are what we consider DEM bills. So right now, I think Peter's saying there's about 22 bills that are being tracked. And out of those 22 bills, the mayor's office is directly looking at about 9 or 10 of them, I think, pretty closely. So that doesn't mean that the other bills aren't important. It means that those particular bills have particular importance to the mayor, and some of that has to deal with bills that are being looked at statewide. So as the mayor talks to the other mayors, and we have regular meetings through HCOM, which is the mayor's group, their organization, the 4 county mayors, their legislative policy people and the mayors, we all get together to kind of discuss what they're looking at. And so that's why that's where some of the bills we're tracking, it's kind of has more of a statewide impact. As for DEM, there are some bills that are being tracked at the state level by other counties. And the example would be the abandoned vehicle package of bills. So HB 1411, 1213, and 1414, that package, which is primarily sponsored by our own rep, Gregor Ilagan, has wide support. The HSAC, which is the Council of County and City Council, that group is also supporting those bills. So that has our attention. What Gregor has said is that next year there may be more aggressive bills put in place that will deal with some of the practical issues sometimes that on the ground we have to deal with, which is location of cars, how you get into private property, all of that. What they did this year is to focus on more administrative type bills to kind of lay the foundation for next year. But behind that is that it is an election year. Every seat is open. And I think that there isn't a real appetite to do anything that aggressive this year. So there is a lot of bills put in place as a build up to next year, or ramp up to next year. I want to talk a little about the one bill that we were disappointed didn't get a hearing, which was SB 3363, which was the general obligation appropriation request bill. They're requesting $50 million to help us with the Kilo wastewater treatment plant, that replacement. And originally, right before session started, we had 3 bills. I think one of them didn't get introduced right off the bat because as we were having discussions with concerns that labor had, that bill just couldn't be introduced. And then the other bills died without getting the kind of hearing they needed. But this one survived and was heading to WHAM so it could cross over. But because it didn't get heard in time, we had to turn it into a direct CIP request, which was suggested early on in session that we might contemplate doing that. But at the time that that discussion came, we had options. So it didn't make sense to throw another option in there while we hadn't worked through, these other vehicles. So ends up being that we made a formal request out of the mayor's office to directly to the budget folks to add that as a CIP request. So the bill died, but the request is still alive. And what we have to do, since that budget is moving over to the other chambers, to get support on the House side for keeping it in, and support not only with our legislators, but if there's support that has to happen, conversations even at the staff level. And that's the kind of stuff that I get to worry about and I get to do, which is to have those conversations, not only with committee members of committees or our own delegation, but also having discussions with the staff folks to make sure that an appropriation or a request isn't erased out of a draft budget. And then tracking whatever potential political issues are behind the scenes that we need to know about. So that's kind of where that bill is. It's important. We're going to have to wait till the final design is in, I think, before we can make the kind of push we want to make on that. But it's certainly, the Hawaii News Now report certainly got people's attention in Honolulu, because everyone I had meetings with referenced that news report. And a part of that, just to kind of give you a heads up, a part of that, when we're saying that there could be an imminent failure at the plant, means that we also have to do on the administration end, we have to do disaster planning for it. And it has to be well thought out, and we have to do it in a way where we can engage communities, the surrounding communities, and then make sure that at the state level, folks are paying attention. We've started to have those conversations with the governor, with other legislators who have concerns about environmental issues. We started that process. So when we get into what we'll call a tabletop planning exercise, we'll make sure everybody knows what's going on, and certainly this commission will have an understanding. I am sensitive to the issue of how things can get disconnected between the work that's being done at the department level, where commissions sit, and where the general public sits. And everybody can be doing a great job, but if there's no communication flow or real comprehensive way of getting information out, then people are not going to be aware. And so the way I look at it is, how can this commission not know if we get into that kind of disaster planning? You would have to know. And so I'm just letting you know that without a particular time frame, we're kind of looking at that. And it depending on what happens at the legislature, it may be sooner than later that we do that. Because if we're saying this money is important, we need to do this as soon as possible, but we don't have a plan in place to deal with an outfall, then it does not going to make sense. So all of that stuff works together, and it could create the kind of traction we might need if there's a follow-up story. If it's when we start being real public about that process, it might be helpful to us in making sure that CIP request stays in the budget, or as we go to next year, that all of that groundwork has been laid as we get into the biennial budget, the 2-year budget, which is normally when you would make an ask like this. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and like I said, I didn't want to go bill by bill at this point. I just wanted to kind of give you kind of an overview of what's happening. And again, your staff, the staff at DEM and Peter Peter does a real good job at communicating this, we have the information we need on a daily basis, to be tracking it. And I wanted you all to know that from the mayor's office, we have, a quarter of the bills that we think are very important are bills that we're monitoring closely, out of the DEM. After this week, we'll have a better idea of where some of these bills stand. So some hearings have been scheduled, but between today and tomorrow, and probably Friday, some of the rest of those bills that are on that list of 22 that DM is closely monitoring, we'll know status, because if it's not scheduled, it's not going to make the time frame. So in other words, if it's not heard by the end of next week, then these bills are going to be dead. They're going to be deferred. So what happens in the next few days are going to be important. And I think that within a couple of weeks, out of that 1,000 bills, you're probably going to see 300-400 drop off almost immediately. And it's not always bad that happens, because companion bills are going to be worked on, or sometimes they're not even, there's similar bills that are not companion bills in both chambers. There's going to be conversations to take language and start morphing the bills, amending a little bit. So there's a lot of activity over the next few weeks that's going to happen. And, I'll probably be making a couple more trips to Honolulu in the next, week or so, to make sure that we're not out of that information loop, because you can only get so much out of Zoom meetings. You can never get a real frank conversation with a legislator to understand why they're voting a certain way, or if there's a backstory, to what, we're not understanding in a Zoom meeting. And that's the value of being able to get over there to talk to them. So I'll end here and just, be open to questions. And I appreciate the time. Good to see the vice chair. We used to see each other quite a bit over the years, and as I'm glad you're involved, and it's good to see you again.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate your comments and your assistance on this. One point I did want to make that we've discussed before, and that is, when this all comes around next year, well before session, if you share with us the bills that are important to the administration, particularly the ones that are also important in our kuleana. Some of us have personal relationships with legislators, not just Big Island legislators. And the earlier, as you know, the earlier that we reach out, the earlier these things can be seen, hopefully, as important enough to move through the process. So that's something we missed this year, but we obviously would like to do that in the future. So any of the commissioners have questions for Steve? I don't see any. Oh, yes, Melissa.
I have a question. You had mentioned, Steve, that there were 9 to 10 bills, I think, the mayor's office is following specifically. Do you think you could just give us a brief rundown of what those bills are?
Yeah, I won't do a detail. I think you can get that from staff better than me, but I'll give you a listing. So, and then, topic area. So I mentioned the package of bills dealing with abandoned vehicles. That's an HSAC initiative, and also the mayors, the counties are looking at, and that's 4 bills, 11, 12, HB 14, 11, 12, 13, 14. They take different pieces of the abandoned vehicle problem, whether it's registration, whether it's fines, but that package definitely. Of course, we had the bill dealing with the wastewater treatment plant in Hilo, HB 1526 HD1, which is the related to organic waste, management of organic waste. That was something that was on our priority tracking list.
Sorry, can you mention that bill one more time? The number of that bill? The organic
Yes,
waste one.
The organic, related to organic waste was HB 1526. All of this stuff you can get from Peter. Peter is the same. He has that list. So I'm gonna, like I said earlier, I didn't want to go sort of a point by point breakdown. Actually, staff knows a lot more about this, and they can do a better job of breaking it down. But I just think, I want to make sure you knew what we were looking at. That's right out of the 22 bills, that you're tracking.
Sure.
The extended producer bill is also very important, and it's going to be important, statewide.
Got the SB 2399 bill that
Yeah,
just passed.
2399. Yeah.
Okay.
And HB 2399.
HB, right.
Yeah, the companion bill, SB 3246, that one is dead. That didn't advance, it didn't move anywhere, but it's okay because you got a vehicle in there. HB 1486, even though it's related to theft, it is related to abandoned vehicles. So it got kind of included in that package of bills we were looking at. And the HB 2195, the cesspool compliance pilot grant, it hasn't been heard yet, and we've been supportive and encouraging that to move forward. The cesspool conversion bill, HB 1806, another one that hasn't been heard yet. We're watching that to make sure. We'll see what the sentiment is. These are House bills that moved over to the Senate, so we got to see where the Senate is with these bills, and yeah, I think it looks like it's all of them. Yeah, that is those are important bills. And as the session moves forward, then we will some bills will drop off, and other bills that are on this list of 22 will end up rising into the mayor's list. The timing is kind of a big issue, so we're always kind of looking at the schedules and making sure we're understanding the timing, because it's fast sometimes. You get less, a little bit more than 24 hours notice sometimes to be able to get your testimony in.
Right, and I wanted to say something briefly about that. So with one of these bills that I've been following, the HB 2399, so that's the extended producer responsibility bill. And I submitted testimony on that bill, I think it was the last week. But we can also, as commissioners individually, because we haven't, come to any kind of consensus as a commission, but we can still contact our legislators in regards to any of these bills that are important to us. And I just got an email from Zero Waste Big Island, that's Jennifer Navarro's group. And they're really good about sending out information in regards to, what link to go to submit testimony. And I can email that if any of you are interested in, being on that email list, I can send that to Peter. But I just want to mention, I think, with a lot of these bills, like now's the time to submit testimony. And like you were just saying, Steve, sometimes there's only a 24-hour notice. So it's kind of important to follow some of these bills that are, I know, close to our hearts, especially the extended producer responsibility one.
We're waiting for that one to get scheduled. I mean, that's an important bill.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be heard by a few different groups, right? I think there were 3 different groups that maybe we're going to hear that bill. I can't remember. It was in an email that I got recently.
Yeah, that's a kind of that's how the system works. You get the hearings on one side, it passes through, it gets voted on, it crosses over the other side, you go through the same process all over again. What the kind of things we pay attention to, or I pay attention to, is how those committees get scheduled, or where it's going. Is it going to be a joint committee, or not? That sometimes committees get set up in a way where the bill is doomed to fail, and it's frustrating, because once you see what the referral is, it's a certain combination, or maybe it's a combination of committees, and then a last committee being, maybe it's not Ways and Means or Finance, maybe it's Judicial. It's almost set up in a way it's never going to make it to the money committees. And so you try to see if you can gauge that ahead of time. But sometimes you don't know, because these decisions are made pretty quickly. And I think that's again, the value of trying to have conversations at different levels with folks, even beyond our own delegation, as Rick was saying, you know, you have relationships with other folks, whether it's other legislators from other counties, or whether it's staff people that you know that are not working on staff. That intel is very, very important. And I always tell folks when they're talking about you know, how to be effective at the legislature, is that you got to have the widest range of information, and then from there kind of see where you can draw the lines, you know, to figure something out. Because you cannot single source this. You can't say that I talked to so and so is the majority leader or whatever, and they said this. You know, those folks wouldn't know what's going on in the opposite chamber. They don't know what's going on upstairs in the governor's office. I spent 3 years working in the governor's office in Honolulu. And I know that sitting there, how little the folks in both chambers knew about what's going on there. So sometimes when I'm in Honolulu, I'll have conversations with the executive level because I want to see what the view is, you know, what kind of things. Sometimes there are bills that are funding bills that don't make it, that could end up, you know, getting into the budget somewhere administratively. A State Department could put money into a budget to be able to alleviate whatever that concern is. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for that kind of information. Sometimes only staff people would know it, or sometimes it's only at the executive level that they'll have an awareness where they said, don't worry about this because this and this department is going to make sure, you know, that it's in their budget. And so then it kind of alleviates a lot of stress for us at this level when we're calling people and writing testimony and beating our heads against the wall. You know, we can have that information. So whatever information you can get, you can funnel it to the department so they can get it to me. Even moving forward, we're only at the halfway point at the legislature. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen from this point forward for the next half of the session. So all of that is good, and you know, we appreciate any information we can get, and I'd be happy to share whatever I know that pertains to, you know, what you're looking at.
Elise, did you have a question?
I did, and I'd also like to request a break after my question. Thank you, Steve, for the summary of what's happening. A lot going on. I wanted to know if you knew regarding the cesspool conversion. What's the consequence of not converting to an approved wastewater system by 2050?
Well, it depends who you talk to. I mean, I think it's a pretty hard line where it's drawn right now. So whether or not there could
or let me refine my question. What's the consequence to the owner of the property?
I don't know if
Now, Steve, I could answer that
yeah, go ahead.
for you. Yeah, it's a good question. The committee, the cesspool committee, conversion committee, working with the Department of Health, we actually had a meeting yesterday and trying to figure out, you know, the timing and how could we get 80,000 cesspool conversion within the entire state, meeting the deadline. So we anticipate some homeowners for difficulties for one reason or another may not meet the deadline, but they could be a ramification. They may get extended, maybe one chance, one time for them to do it. But the state acknowledged that definitely with 80,000 cesspools, if we don't start converting now, nobody's going to meet the deadline. So the intention is, how could we set incentive to start converting now, so you know we don't have a backlog just you know, a few months before 2050. So that's why they try to pass that legislation at the point of sale. I think Nicole Lowen, I think is sponsoring that. The idea is if you sell in your house and it has a cesspool, you have to convert it prior to the sale. So that hopefully could start expediting some of the process. And I know they had also stated that they've been, technically, if you average, with all the resources we have, you average about 109 homes a year. So definitely there's a challenge trying to get to the 2050. But the committees are working on maybe some legislation that could expedite the process, or similar to what I just mentioned, at point of sale type of situation. Hopefully it passes. It has some advantage to it. It may face some resistance, but the committee is trying to navigate that as well. Hopefully that answered your question, Alex.
Yeah, let's go back to, does anybody have any specific questions regarding the legislative update that Steve Bader has presented? If not, we can let him go. And I had intended to have a break at 10:15. So commissioners, any additional questions for Steve? If not, thank you very much, Steve, for attending. I hope we see you more often.
Sure.
And again, I hope in
think we will see
2023 we see you earlier.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate
All right,
it.
mahalo. So let's take a 5-minute break and come back at
Good job you had.
let's take a let's come back at 10:20. How about that?
It's
We are now recording. New business item B, which is a discussion regarding the DEM operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 22 and 23. And we'll need Director Mansour to bring us up to date on that. So as soon as he's back, we'll be able to look at that item. And item C under new business is also about upcoming proposals to amend the county code. And I think we'll need director's input on those as well. So yeah, essentially where we are now, we need the director to come back. So because we're basically at the update section of the agenda. So give him a couple minutes to join us, and hopefully we'll get him back online.
Can we recess again?
Peter, is the director in his office in Kona today?
He was just there before the break
He's there in Hilo?
in Kona.
Yeah, that's what I asked. Okay. Yeah, I guess we'd have to text him, and if you listen to Hawaii Public Radio, recently there's been an interview with Amy Miller, who is the head of the EPA Region 9. And she said, as part of that interview, that she was in communication with the County of Hawaii with regard to planning additional sewering on this island. And that was the first I had heard on that subject. So I hope that that's true. And I hope we can get some input from the director about what those discussions entail. As the commissioners are aware, there are a number of places on the island that are absolutely ripe for sewering. sooner rather than later because they are problem areas that are being affected by climate change, sea level rise, and so forth. So, okay, director's back, good. So we are moving on in our agenda to new business item B, which is a discussion regarding the DEM's operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 22-23. Director, you want to bring us up to date on where we are with that?
Sure, definitely. We had submitted the draft budget to the mayor. He approved some of the funding for us, some of the positions, so it went to council members. We're gonna have a budget hearing, I think, the first week in April, in front of council members. And then the second round, we are revising, still trying to work with the administration on revising some of the positions that we're requesting that was not approved the first time around. Hopefully we get more approved in May. So we could at least get in a situation where at least from the wastewater, be able to do more. As you guys know, the project list is humongous. We have so many projects in the wastewater division, but we only got the 3 current engineers working on them now. But we're hoping, we're gonna keep our finger crossed. And the good thing is, like I said, we got the public information officer position approved the first time around. So we're gonna make sure that we capitalize on that position as we hire that person. So I'm sure you guys gonna probably log in to see the council meeting for the budget. I don't know if you guys could access the draft budget that was submitted to them. I would imagine it's here. Is that for, it could be shared, the draft budget? Do you know?
I thought that Peter had sent it out
Oh, okay.
to the commissioners. Is that right,
Okay.
Peter?
That's correct. It's relevant excerpts of
Yeah.
Bill 126 and 127, draft 1.
So Rick, to answer your question, I guess you guys have a copy already of the budget. So hopefully you guys reviewed it. If you have questions, that'll be good to discuss now. That will prepare us for the discussion of council.
And the links are in the agenda. Directly on the agenda.
Yeah, it is on the agenda. Director, I do have a question. I'm wondering if any of the positions are focused on a grant writer or somebody to pursue additional funding outside of the county budget structure?
That is a good question. The first round did not go through with a grant writer. We're gonna do it for the May submittal. My understanding, our research and development department, they're the one who's gonna be chasing grants and loans for the entire county. But you're right, from where I said, I think I had a lengthy discussion with our business manager as well yesterday. And we're gonna resubmit it for the May consideration. Because if that's the only source of our income for the department, we need the staffing that could chase that income for us. Because all of our projects are funded either by loans or grants. So we're gonna try to submit it for the May. We're gonna try to, for the second round, hopefully we get some attraction on that.
Good. My observation in recent years is that Department of Research and Development, while they have the skill set, they also have a massive number of areas that they are looking at pursuing funds for. And given that we have federal money opportunities probably greater than at any time in our lifetimes, I think it's critically important that the division have its own grant writer that's focused only on the priorities of the division, as opposed to counting on the research and development department, which has responsibilities that go much more broadly across county government. And again, it's my understanding that they're already overwhelmed with the kinds of stuff that they have to do, and they're still doing grant writing and catch up because their responsibility includes all of the damage from the volcano. So they're really backed up, is my understanding. So if we can support the opportunity for DEM to have its own grant writer, I think it's an important thing for us to do at this point in time. Again, given the opportunity for federal funding, which requires a lot of different things, and we may need grant support for the additional 20%, 30%, 40% that's required by a lot of these funding agencies that the county may or may not be able to pursue by bond floats and other means. So does anybody have any?
You're right, that'll be my justification on the supplement, because you're right. We're gonna try, that'll become our justification is, we need to chase our source of income. And you're right, other department, they may look at the entire county, and even if we hire staff members, they're probably still gonna coordinate with R&D as well. But yeah, that'll become our justification for the position. You hit it right on, Rick.
So any of the commissioners have any additional questions regarding the budget? Okay, I don't see any hands. So the next item on the agenda is the upcoming proposals to amend the county code. Mr. Director, you want to speak to that?
That is, I know last time I talked to you guys and we were gonna share with you the pre-treatment, because we're going through the pre-treatment code revision and ordinances. But I think we're gonna wait. The reason we didn't share it with you at that time, we were advised by our corporation counsel to first submit it to the Department of Health, and then get it out, because that will allow everybody to review and comment as we move forward, because it was still in the draft and we have a deadline to submit it to Department of Health. But eventually, yes, that pre-treatment triggered us to also do some code change. So that'll become also the opportunity for you guys to review it and advise us of what other code changes you guys like to do.
So I've got a specific question with regard to pre-treatment. Is there nothing currently in the code requiring people on the sewer system to pre-treat their waste?
The only thing is there, it's probably the fog, which is fat, oil, and grease. But no, there's nothing in detail. It took our staff quite a bit of time to rewrite and introduce that pre-treatment in the code. Our new engineer that we hired last year literally was put in full time just trying to get that code and details into our ordinances. And because you're talking about enforcement, you talk about implementation, you're talking about procedures, none of that was within our code, no.
Okay. The second question, will the new pre-treatment requirements include those businesses that are basically that put salt water into the sewer system. I'm thinking in particular dive shops, saltwater fish, wholesalers and so forth. There are opportunities for saltwater to be introduced into the sewer system in other ways than besides leaks.
That is correct. Each business is gonna be looked at and analyzed of what type of discharge they're gonna be discharging. And they're gonna be required to do a pre-treatment prior to disposal.
All right, commissioners, any questions with regard to upcoming amendments to the county code? I don't see any hands there. All right. So moving on, we're in section 7 of the agenda now. Sorry, Melissa, did you raise your hand? No. Okay. So reports and correspondence, we've covered the legislative update. And the commissioners have requested various informational updates. The Waiahinu transfer station, Director, is there anything new on that subject? Because Lee McIntosh has agreed that we'll drop that as a constant in our agenda, but do you have anything new to add?
No, thank you for bringing it up. I was gonna talk about it since my last update to you that the contractor only completed 20% and we were thinking about terminating. I had requested a meeting with the contractor and the designer. And I went to the site myself for the 3rd time just to figure out what's the best way to move forward. So we met and I think they submit a schedule to at least get us the retaining wall and the asphalt, so people could start utilizing that transfer station, because currently the current retaining wall is very jeopardized and it could fail because there's nothing supporting it. So given that importance of an issue, they gave us a schedule to complete the project by December. So we're gonna meet with them, hold them up to that date, hold that date as a deadline. And we agreed, hopefully they could finish it, given the opportunities on the permitting process, that they could meet within the specified days. And they know we definitely may subject them to liquidated damages after the December. So we are in the process of working with Corporation Council to create a change order to allow the move forward and complete project based on their new schedule. Lee, you want to say something, or was that John?
I guess, so it wasn't clear. So are you going to repair the existing wall so we can actually back up to the chute? And or are you talking about finishing the bottom part and continuing on with a different system?
No, they're gonna finish the bottom part, the one they started, because that's what was in their contract. So we're gonna finish the bottom part to bring the new retaining wall.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, the county needs to put more teeth in their contracts, and because we find, especially the states, they start a project and they don't finish and nothing happens and they just walk away, and that should stop.
I
All right,
agree.
thanks for that. Second item on the agenda is the status of the Kealakekee wastewater treatment plant's sand filter donation and the timeline for its installation.
We signed a contract with engineering partners locally here on the island. They are working on the design plan. Because they have to put the project out to bid. So they just started laying out the dismantling of the sand filter units, because there's 5 units within that sand filter, plus all the mechanical parts. So they started doing the layout. So we also waiting on them to pretty much give us the work schedule to at least to completion. Our goal is once it get dismantled and transported to Kealakekee, Eric is also working on hopefully securing another contract that is going to be doing the head work and the odor control, who they going to assist us in the process layout of that sand filter. So it's coming along. My goal is hopefully by the end of this year, we should have it at least in place and running if we not get tangled in the permitting process.
One further question on that is, where will it be located? Will it be at the treatment plant, or will it be at the sump?
No, it has to be by the treatment plant, because by code it has to, because we have to intercept the water, because you have oxidation, chlorination, and filtration. So we have to strategically put it on the plan to complete the process.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Anyone have any questions on that subject? All right, moving on. Next item was, are there any plans for inspection of the sewer laterals on Ali'i Drive from Kuakini Highway to Hualalai Road?
Currently, we don't have a plan on designing the laterals, but we working on. I know there's a lot of manholes that we need to raise along Ali'i Drive. Some of them has been covered by Department of Public Work as they were laying the asphalt. So our guys currently working on the traffic plan, traffic control plan. So the intent is once they finish that traffic control, we need to start raising these manholes and also covering these manholes that have been buried by the AC, by the asphalt.
So at this point, there's not a specific plan to inspect the laterals.
Not currently. We still, this is part of the master plan. We throw in, I think $500,000 into the budget to get us that master plan. Part of that master plan, how to lay out the maintenance and replacement of sewer segment over time. So to identify the segments that need to be replaced, that it's totally gone, either due to corrosion, if it's a ductile iron pipes. So, and part of it is also inspect, during the inspection of the sewer line, it's going to be, the ladder is going to be inspected as well. But it's going to be within the program.
So if that's the case, do we understand that the the laterals can be inspected right now and that there's no new ordinances or any requirements so that the laterals can be inspected by the division.
Part of the code, when we did the pre-treatment, we reinforced that in the code change. So when you guys review the code change, please, like I said, redline it, mark it up to whatever you guys like to see, because this is our opportunity. But the laterals were included as part of the code changes under the pre-treatment.
Great. Commissioners, any questions on the subject? Yes, Commissioner Fulton.
Thank you, Chair Rick. Director Mansour, we had spoken informally about smoke testing along Ali'i Drive that may have occurred through 2021 and into 2022. Of course, that's part of the information that I requested more specifics on as far as the history of that testing. It wasn't provided to me yet, and I'm not quite sure how to proceed with getting this information. Could you advise, please?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen some of the emails between you and Dora and Eric. I did some reorg within our division when I first came in. So Eric Takamura is being specially assigned to oversee the operations. So we take that responsibility from one person and kind of spread it so we can manage it better. I think the information you got from Dora was the last time, I think was September or October of the year before. The person that was in charge of that, he's been on personal leave since then. And I think he extended it for another month just recently. So, but David Thomas is working, because you and I also talked about the dye, and I had the chance to talk to our grade 4 operator, David Thomas, and he said, yeah, they've been doing dye along that Ali'i Drive as well, every time they get a call. So Dave Thomas under Eric may have more updated, because we just had a meeting with Dr. Bennett at the facility with David Thomas, our grade 4 operator, and our engineer 5. And he was sharing some of that data on that chloride with Dr. Bennett. I'll have Eric, your communication is fine with Dora or Eric, but I'll have Eric get with Dave Thomas and make sure they send you the latest.
I appreciate that. Can you give me a time frame for that to happen?
I'll talk to, I think I kind of heard Dave in the back office. If after this meeting, I'll grab him and maybe he could shoot you that information himself.
Okay. Yeah, the two main subjects were the chloride data and history of smoke testing along Ali'i. And I'm interested also in the results of the smoke testing and dye testing too. That's news to me that any dye testing's been done, and that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your efforts. Appreciate it. And I look forward to getting the information from you soon.
I'll chase it down from Dave and see. But like I said, I think part of the disconnect, the person that was in charge of him was still on family leave, so. We can't hear you, Rick.
Sorry, motorcycle went by and I muted. So any other questions from commissioners on the subject? If not, let's move on to solid waste division projects and updates. And Ramsey, that'd be you.
Solid waste, yeah, I'm trying to see if I could text Dave as I'm talking, but solid waste, as you guys seen, we've been having challenges with our equipment, especially our trucks. So that led to backlog of solid waste garbage on the floor of the reload facility. So we trying to get with the union, and we had a conversation with them about trying to get somebody from the outside to assist us because it become health and safety hazard. They definitely say, no, we can't go outside and get an assistant. We try to manage for what we got, and then the reload facility caught on fire last Friday. You guys probably seen that. So the facility caught on fire. The fire department was there. Our staff from the wastewater and solid waste mobilized to put out the fire. And fortunately, we were able to resume operation the day after in the afternoon after we did the assessment, and we were able to restore everything else beside power to the facility. But that kind of gives you an idea of the stuff that our staff deal with day in, day out. It's unfortunate that we will not be able to hire a private hauler just to empty the floor for us. Because we kind of knew it's a fire refuse always catches on fire due to spontaneous combustion or something get thrown in the garbage. Our current permit allows 0 load left behind, so unfortunately we still having 5 to 6 loads at the end of the day. But moving forward, definitely, I still need to reschedule another meeting with the union and try to navigate something to move forward, because it's really, the current situation is unacceptable. So hopefully we still have an equipment failing. We went in front of the council member, if you guys seen, they finally approved our equipment purchase for 3 trucks. In my understanding, we backlog on the purchase for almost a year plus before we get them. So from here, moving forward, we're gonna anticipate more breakdown on the equipment. And we're gonna be faced with the same decision making of trying to get a private entity to come in and empty the floor for us so we don't catch the place on fire like we did just last week. So that's as far as that aspect of the reload. Definitely the green waste, the mulch, it's a high commodity now. The demand is meeting the supplies. So our goal is to be able to have enough to go around. So transfer stations are designed for residential use. But over the year, it morphed to have more of a commercial users going there and taking a high load of that green mulch that doesn't leave much to the residents. That's why we got a lot of complaints from residents and the commercial users of, what's going on the mulch on Kalakaua transfer station site. We keep reminding people, definitely people want high quantity of mulch. We have tons and tons of mulch at the West Side landfill. So if people want to fill up a truck or big semi or what have you, I mean, they could get it from there. But we are limited on the quantity that goes to Kalakaua because we only got 2 trailers, and every time we empty the green waste trailer, it comes back full with mulch, and that's the amount we could bring in. So given that and the resource we have, our staff doing their best effort to continue operating with pretty old equipment, and between transporting waste from east to west and transporting some of the mulch back to the Kalakaua transfer station, take efforts, and it takes a new equipment, and we're gonna try to the mayor's administration was gracious enough, generous to approve some of the equipment for us also in this 2022-23 budget. So we get in more equipment to replace some of our old equipment. As you guys seen, when I did the presentation for council last week, literally we had 44 trucks. 12 out of these trucks are disposed. Currently, we have 24 trucks, and 4 of them are, some of them are broken down. So, and we have 22 transfer stations, and we have 2 landfills. So when you do the math, we don't have enough equipment to go around. And we have 25 operators. So that's why the equipment was very important topic to chase and trying to get the resource to our staff. So we're working on that. Hopefully we get better news as we move in the May budget, and to allow at least our staff. We've been going around and meeting with our crew, solid waste crew, every morning at 6:30 before they get up on and go on the roads, because they travel all over the island because we're so decentralized. The number one concern they have is get us the equipment, get us safe equipment, get us the right equipment. So we heard him out loud. The mayor heard him out loud. He's been meeting with them as well. And I thank Mayor Roth for his understanding and the support that he's given us and given the staff to move forward.
I have a question on solid waste. The Huhonua power plant, it's recently been revealed that they only have enough trees to operate for, I think, 6 years or something like that. And they are saying publicly that one of their intentions is to buy green waste from the county to fire the plant. Is there any discussion with them toward that? And what's your feeling with regard to disposing of green waste through that means?
I have no discussion with them, but definitely as I started this topic, it's high commodity. Everybody want to put their hand on it. Our priority number 1 is definitely for ag use, for our farmers and ag use, and also our constituents, our residents, because we don't have soil here on the island. So I hate to see that go into flame rather than being used, to create crops and food rather than being waste. So no, I have not had discussion with them, and that won't be my recommendation to the administration.
Good. Glad to hear you say that, because I would argue that a mayor who is focused on sustainability should also be focused on the production of high quality compost and mulch for agricultural production as opposed to production of power. But anyway, other commissioners have any questions with regard to solid waste?
Yeah.
Yes,
Um,
John, go ahead.
On the issue of the composting, when we did the redesign on both the Pahoa transfer station and the Keough transfer station, there was supposed to be areas set up for composting at those facilities. And that kind of somehow got lost in the fray. I mean, again, cutting down on your travel time, moving this material around certainly would be helpful. And I'm sure the community would be appreciative.
Good question, John. I think that's our intention. I think when I went before council about, I think probably a month ago or more, that discussion came about decentralizing compost rather than centralizing compost. And I think we have a great testimony from the public that they would like to see decentralized. And our goal, currently, we have an agreement that limit us to do that. So hopefully, we're gonna look at decentralization to meet the need and demand of the constituents. You're right, I agree with you. It makes perfect sense to take the green waste within the transfer station and put a grinder system and start grinding, creating mulch. Even if you don't create compost, but at least you could start creating mulch at each transfer station rather than transporting.
Yeah, well, if you look at the design, it's in there.
Yeah, I support that.
I have a question. You just said, Ramsey, that there's an agreement that limits your ability, I think, to create compost. What agreement is that?
The current agreement with Hawaii Earth Recycling, because the intent was to have the composting facility in Hilo centralized that, and every transfer station and the landfills bring it to that facility, which makes it complicated because imagine transporting foods from every business and on the highways and from a landfill to become a nightmare for logistics and the transporting of that. So,
Right. So when is there a time frame on that agreement? Is there, because I think it was actually Shipman Business Park, right? That's where the centralized composting facility was going to be, which was in Keough. But what's going on with that? What's the latest on that?
well, I think to some extent, probably maybe just from a legal point of view, maybe let's not discuss it because, from contractual, that whole subject could end up in litigation as we move forward. But at this point, just the department is looking at options. That's all I could say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, if there's no additional questions on solid waste, Lee McIntosh, sorry, go ahead.
Going back a little bit for the e-waste, I had a quick question. Rather than just having collection points, has you considered decentralizing, maybe having a one day where you collect them like normal, but also for all the other transfer stations, where you could also drop them off there and then it could be ferried to your drop-off point somewhere, something like that, I think would be helpful, because it's a long drive for me to go to Hilo, Kona, or Puna, and I don't know the last time when one was held at Waihino. It's been a long time. So.
Are you talking about the hazard collection events?
Yes.
The hazardous and the e-waste, at least from what I understand, the e-waste has been put on hold. But yeah, also the hazardous waste.
Yeah, the hazardous waste, we did one in the Ka'u district last year, and we have a small turnout. So we're gonna, we monitoring the turnout because, like I said, $50,000. We want to make sure we maximize the collection. And we've been putting notification out, island wide, if people, like I said, so they aware of it, if people want to drive in that weekend to bring their stuff to the Kona, Waimea, or Puhua area, they could do that. And I think so that's as we lay out the dates and the timing and the location, our staff kind of go back and review records of, to make it efficient.
Well, it also might help if you put up big banners or posters. We still don't have anything about specific items, at least at ours. You have the general signage, but then, there's nothing like, I didn't know that they were only taking one appliance a day per person, or TMK, however you do that. So, because I just had a neighbor, they had to come back with appliances because they brought too many. But there's no signage at Waiahinu for that, and some other things. Now, it might, if you look hard enough, you might be able to find it on the website. But overall, from what I found, most people in Ka'u don't generally visit websites. So if we had signage, it would help, because people do read signs.
Well, I could talk to our staff, definitely, we could add signs, but that hopefully, yeah, they could, maybe the word of mouth sometimes helps, because they may end up hauling 2 white goods and they read the sign by the door, they're gonna be disappointed as well. So the idea is, that's the reason we encourage people accessing our website before they get out the door, so they don't end up driving with 2 white goods and read the sign at the landfill, and then, they're gonna complain again. Well, I came with 2 now, I'm reading the sign. You kind of do them if you do, you do them if you don't, so. But
Yeah,
we're
'cause
gonna
by
continue
late.
improving. Go ahead, Melissa, I'm sorry.
I just was saying, I'm agreeing with you. By then it's too late. By the time, they've read the sign at the landfill, they're already there with their stuff. So it's too late. So I don't know. Yeah, because it is all on that. I mean, like I said earlier, it is all on that website, the list of, but everything that can be accepted at the hazardous waste. But like you're saying, Lee, if somebody doesn't go on the website, well, then that's not going to help them. So there almost needs to be a sign like a week before the hazardous waste drop off somewhere, at some community center, next week is the hazardous waste drop off. This is the list of the things that you can bring. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully with the new position maybe we could start targeting more, maybe PSA, public service announcement or something like that. Well, we're gonna continue navigating. We may not hit every person may not hear about it, and we always gonna, like I said, it's, we're gonna do our best to put the word out.
All right, if there's no additional questions on solid waste, we'll move on to wastewater. And I'm watching the time. I do want to leave time at the end because Kira needs to advise the commissioners with regard to our hearing on the Kaalakai Partners LLC issue. So moving on to wastewater, I would like to start with on Hawaii Public Radio on the conversation. Amy Miller from EPA announced that she is working with the county on extending the sewer systems as part of the process of getting rid of cesspools. And I wanted to ask the director if he could bring us up to date on that subject.
Really, there's a meeting set up with them, so I'll have more details as we meet with them on April 6th.
So at this point, there's no plan to extend the sewer system. It's just.
I think what she's referring to is have an integrated wastewater management plan. and we haven't got to that. So, and we're working with trying to navigate how we get there.
Got it. Okay. Any other updates with regard to wastewater division projects?
Signed contract with the consultant. They moved. As you guys also know, it went to council last week and it was approved. We're moving forward with that as we speak. We have other small projects that we're working on, like the Holly Hallaby. Kind of that is being finalized. Headworks and odor control at Kealakekee. That also, the consultant was selected to pursue the design on that as well. So there's a lot of projects that staff are pursuing for the wastewater, but like I said, I think the most important one, at least we start, the design on Hilo, and hopefully we're looking at end of year to get the construction document out and put it out on the street and encumber money prior to end of fiscal year 22-23. And pretty much we covered the sand filter and other questions that you guys have earlier on the wastewater.
Commissioners, any more questions for the director on wastewater management? Seeing none, I think we can move forward. The next item on our agenda is future agenda items. Follow-up action. Are there any future agenda items that commissioners would like to list today? Yes, Melissa.
I'd like to be kept up to date on what's happening with the Hawaii earth recycling. And I don't know if that needs to be on next agenda per se. I mean, maybe that's something I just need to follow up on my own, but I do think that that's an important issue. And if that contract is limiting our ability as a county to have a decentralized composting system, well, then I think that's something that we kind of need to know about. So I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if that needs to be on next meeting's agenda, but I think it's something important for us to know about.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable that that item be added to the unfinished business section of the agenda, because it is something that we have been talking about or hearing about as an issue for a long time. And, I think what we've heard from the general public when they've testified at commission meetings and also one-on-one to us as commissioners is that they want to see this decentralization as well. So from my perspective, it's ongoing unfinished business that we should just include in future agendas automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Other commissioners, anything on the subject? Elise?
Yeah, so Melissa, are you looking for an update to the litigation, or are we as a commission focused on working on the decentralization problem?
I think both, really. I mean, they go hand in hand. So the way I see it, and Ramsey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be one of the limiting factors of creating a decentralized composting system is the fact that the county is in a contract, I think, with Hawaii Earth Recycling. And then that contract, I tried to follow up on that a little while ago, and I didn't really get very far with it because I think it was because of the possible litigation issue. I think maybe the person that I was emailing with wasn't able legally to give me that information. But it does seem like the county's in this contract with Hawaii Earth Recycling, but nothing's happening with that because it fell through. It was a building that, I think there was a site in Shipman Business Park that was going to be the site of the composting, the centralized composting facility. And it just never got off the ground, but the county is still in some kind of contractual agreement with that company, even though nothing's happening. So that needs to be resolved in order for us to move forward with a decentralized composting system. Am I correct? Is that kind of what's happened?
You are, Melissa, you're correct. You have a good summary of it. But like I said, I don't know if Malia online, but probably because it may lead to litigation, and probably we may not be able to give an update. But you guys are definitely could start analyzing and looking at decentralization as well, because I know Senna and R&D working on some grants and studies.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess the question is, can decentralized composting still happen even with this other sort of unresolved issue? Can they be two separate things? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's possible.
Currently, we can't because the composting is under that contract countywide.
Right. Okay. Right. So that's one of the things that's impeding the process.
Yeah, and I think if Corporation Council allows us to whatever extent possible, but like I said, currently, even when we go before council, that subject, because it could potentially, we cannot discuss any details or pertaining to that particular contract.
I guess my only question with that, sorry to harp on this, but
No, that's
there's gotta be a time limit with that though, right? Like this isn't gonna be, going on for like the next 5 years. Like there has to be some time frame around this. It has to get resolved at some point, right? Or am I wrong? Can it just go on indefinitely for, decades? I don't know.
their current contract is till 2036, but
All right.
but yeah, it depends how we're gonna pursue with it. And like I said, I don't have the crystal ball and the details. That's why probably we don't know what, like I said, we'll leave it up to Corporation Council.
Okay.
All right, commissioners, any other questions on solid waste? We've covered a lot. I'm sorry. We should be talking about wastewater. We covered solid waste and reverted back. Any other questions for the director at this point in time?
Sorry, Mr. Vice Chair. I think we're on future agenda items.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we are. Any other future agenda items?
Same old, same old.
Just a reminder to the commissioners that our secretary, Peter Sur, is very good about sending the draft agenda out week or 10 days at least before these meetings. And if you have additional agenda items, that's a really good time to get them inserted in the agenda. And it gives us the freedom to discuss these subjects at the meeting. So please be aware, watch for that, that email. Being that there are no additional hands raised or interest in discussing this subject, I'd like to pass it over to our Corporation Counsel, Kira Wong, to remind us of the scheduled next meeting, for Kayala Kai Partners LLC case.
Thank you. Yes, so the continuation of the contested case hearing is set for April 27th at 2:15 p.m. So the plan is to have EMC's regular meeting start at 9, and then there will be a recess and then a reconvening at 2:15 p.m. My understanding is that it looks like, I think Ms. Robinson and Ms. Cardwell are the only commissioners who didn't participate in, I think it was January 7th, if I'm correct. And then obviously Commissioner Olson's recused. And then I just learned last night that Commissioner Ho'opi'i resigned. So this is our group. Ms. Robinson and Ms. Cardwell, I just wanted to remind you folks that Peter, I think, has sent out the link for the YouTube video from January 7th. And I think it's like 3 hours long, but you can speed it up. You can speed it up. And so if you can review the video and what was entered into evidence on the record, and then just come prepared to state on the record that you reviewed those items and that you are ready to proceed with the continuation of the hearing. The plan is to reopen the evidentiary portion so the commissioners can have time to ask questions again of the witnesses of both DEM and Kayala Partners. And then after that, we'll close the evidentiary portion, and then someone will state a motion, a second, a discussion. And so this is the second and final time that we will meet for this contested case proceeding. And the reason why we're meeting again is because there wasn't a prevailing vote from the last meeting. And so we need at least 4 commissioners to vote either way if there are 7 or fewer commissioners attending the meeting. And so I just want to also remind everybody that, except for Mr. Olson, since he's not going to be participating, just make sure you don't do your own independent investigating. Obviously, don't talk to each other about the substance of the contested case. Everything has to be done in open session and on the record. And I think that that's all the points that I have. If anyone has questions.
I have one question. Has any additional evidence been introduced from either side?
I haven't received anything filed from either side. So no, whatever will be new will be on April 27th. I think mostly based on whatever questions you guys have to ask, right? Because the testimony is evidence. I don't think they're going to be submitting anything in as far as documents. It'll just be testimonial evidence from the witnesses.
Okay. Anyone else? Elise, Melissa, you're on the hot seat here, so if you have any questions, now's the time to ask.
I think I'll just email Peter because I actually just looked through my email and I don't see that YouTube video, so I'll just email Peter and I'll get it again. It might be in there somewhere. I just wasn't able to find it.
Peter, if you can email all the commissioners, you can blind carbon copy them, and then and obviously if questions come up in the meantime, you guys are free to reach out to me, email. Actually, I think this might be my last meeting with you folks because Sinclair, who's the deputy who advises EMC, is returning April 1st. So he'll be back, but obviously I'll help with the transition and be available to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thanks, Kira.
Thank you.
Great, Dee.
I just, on this subject of this hearing, I also want to check with the commissioners who are absent to see if you need the original documents that were sent out relating to the case, the evidence.
Yeah, maybe that would be good to include that in the email with the YouTube video. That way everything's just in one place. And I don't know, maybe for all of you, since it's been a while, maybe it'd be good to just have it in general to review.
I do have some paper copies to hand out. I can mail them to you.
Okay.
A few more left.
All right, if there's no further business, we're close to 11:30, and if nobody has any further business, I would recognize a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
Okay, we have a second from both Dee Fulton and Melissa Cardwell. Thank you all for being here today at the meeting, and we'll see you all in April.
Thank you,
everyone.
Chair Rick. Aloha.
Vote.
Aloha.
Ahoy-ho.
Is there a vote? There's no vote. Okay, thanks, everyone.